at 5:30. Armstrong, back to a couple of the Dave Aranda sound bites from spring drills yesterday. First time he's met with the media. First time we've heard from him in quite some time. And one of the things is, they're back. And, there's a lot of new, although a lot that we think is settled. But Dave Aranda on being now in this moment as they begin spring drills.
No. It was, I think the focus of, hey, this is our team, right? The past is the past. The future is what we make it. And I think, I think sometimes with young people, there's a tendency, and I can remember being this way too, is that, hey, when I get my shot, right, when I'm in the seat or when I'm in the position or when it's my job, right, I'm going to act like this or I'm going to get this done. And I just think there's always kind of a kick the can down the road, as opposed to putting in the work, right, wherever you're at. And each day is an opportunity to get better. Each day is trial and error of being a better person. And I just think it's a fight to get. I think it's more conducive to kind of chilling if you're kicking it down the road, as opposed to the grind of living inside out. And so that's the challenge. And we're in those battles a lot right now.
I want you guys to think about it. So he can take some, and not that he's the first coach to ever discuss things the way he does, but he's very unique. Kick the can down the road, and it's kind of like you're just chilling. Instead of every day, you act as if you are the starter. And you always hear, practice every day because one day you're, an injury away from being the starter. And are you ready when that time comes? And you have this team coming off a remarkable year. Their best team in Baylor football history with what they did. They've won Big 12s before, but they're winning the Big 12 those years. They also lost to UCF and Michigan State. They didn't finish. And yet here he is saying, no, that's the past. We now try to decide our future.
Well, yeah, they didn't win a national championship.
Yep.
So, I mean, they had a good season. Nothing more. I mean, it's not like you just celebrate this until the end of time. They won a bunch of games. Good. What's next? I mean, that's very simple. You don't live off that Big 12 title in 2021 for the next 10 years. You don't win another one here in the next 5, or at least competitive, you're out of a job. I mean, that's the reality. So, yeah, I mean, he knows as well as anybody, not for his job's sake, but just for the program's sake, to continue being who they want to be, they have to work harder than they ever have. They're not going to sneak up on anybody next year. So I think that's the right mindset, and he's right. I remember guys growing up of, playing whatever sport, and you'd have the kid who's not even close to playing time who's talking about the batting gloves he's going to wear and, how many bases he's going to steal and how many home runs he's going to hit once he gets his opportunity on varsity or whatever, and then that's a year down the road, 2 years down the road. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then they finally get that opportunity, and all that time they were talking about what they were going to do, they weren't actually putting in the work, and it turns out they weren't even that good. You know what I mean? So he's exactly right, and you got to do that day in and day out. You got to get better every chance that you can possibly get, and there's a lot of open positions on this team. So if anybody thinks that they're just going to slide into a starting spot, or I'm going to do this when I get my opportunity, no, you need to be doing it right now. Like today, you need to be doing whatever you can, whether that means you're going to start at safety this season or 2 years from now. You need to be putting in every single ounce of work that you possibly can. So it's the right mentality to have. I think it's the mentality probably of most programs of just that day in and day out grind.
I like the way I get him now. Maybe I don't. But I get him now, where, of course, the first year was difficult because of COVID and Zoom and all that. Then you started to really get him about midway through last year.
Yeah, I mean, you really, and well, part of that is him also being more comfortable with who he is in this job and all that, and figuring those things out. I mean, starting your new job during COVID was not the easiest way to do it, and that now he's you can tell he's much more comfortable, and we get what we get from him, and it's always interesting, and I think it's probably always interesting because we don't get that much. We're not overloaded with stuff. He's not out there all the time, and so, he leaves with a lot to think about.
He's not afraid to make fun of himself, and I don't know if it's this comment, Armstrong, about the goals of the program and the standard of spring drills. We have a couple here. Let's go to the last one. Aranda on starting anew with everything being taught again, as in back to the basics, even if some are ahead of the curve?
Be back to basics, because I think, like a great example would be, we cannot, or at least I believe, we cannot assume that anything's taught or anything's a given or anything's understood. We have to teach it all. And so if there's like a unit teach period and there's a group that's on the field and they're being drilled in something, right, we really have to work on the guys that aren't in the drill or paying attention to the drill, right, and they're locked into the drill because, it could be a Gary Bohannon, Blake Shapen situation where just like that, right, now you're in and now you got to roll and now you have to execute. And so if that thing is broken and not working, then you don't get the standard and you don't get the execution that you want. And so all of those things are just foundational, basic things. It's, a lot of them are simple to do, but they're simple to say, but they're difficult to do, especially day in, day out.
All right, and I think this one here, and that's kind of reiterating what we just said, that you have next man up. You never know. And last year they, the Bohannon and Shapen thing, Blake Shapen came in and immediately, and Sean Bell or Jeff Grimes or all of the above were not afraid to throw him straight into the curb and start firing away. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you see a quarterback come in and it's very timid. And, sometimes you see backup quarterbacks come in and they don't
three handoffs until they can figure things out.
Or maybe just a little flat pass out in the flat. And with Shapen, they let him start firing away. I'm not saying they were throwing the ball down the field immediately, but I think his first throw was like a little 8-yard, little sideline route. Now, the standards. The standards of this program. You think maybe, okay, win a conference title. This is different. The standards and the goals of this program as they enter spring drills at Baylor.
Yeah, so number one for us, we have 3, is to own the standard. And so that's, off the field and on the field. And so off the field, be class, integrity, academic excellence. I think there's, we probably didn't start as well as we wanted to academically. And so we're really pushing to finish strong with school. And then, I think on the field, it's energy and edge and execution. I think, guys were given energy and fighting through it, all of it. And I think that's such a huge piece. I look forward, to our season coming up and just the games that we're on the road. And it's just going to be, just our traveling party versus whatever else. And we have to create our own energy, man. And, just like anything else, it's reps and practice and all that. Then I think the number 2 would be we, not me. And so that would be, in spring ball, right, me with you, not me versus you. And so it's not an O versus D thing or DBs versus a receiver thing. It's guys pushing each other to get better. And then along with that, too, it becomes like, certain guys just in terms of buying in and being a part of all of it, because I think sometimes some of the things we're asking off the field is probably a bit much when it's just football that's in their front sight. So it's like, hey dude, you can be you, man, but align with us. Like totally, I think the worst thing would be if we're just getting a bunch of like Dave Arandas. How boring and brutal would that be if we're just like recreating that, And so I think like guys totally being themselves, but aligning with us, right, at our standards and all of it, I think is important. And 3 would be, it doesn't matter, get better. And so, the adversity and the pressure that we want to create, we have to execute in those situations so that when we get to the Novembers and the Decembers and all of it, it's secondhand.
6 Dave Arandas, how boring and brutal would that be?
Yeah, you know what I think when I hear that, I just think that one day this guy's going to have a recruiting class. There's going to be people that start coming to Baylor because he is so unique and different and cerebral that I don't know. I'm more and more intrigued by him every time he talks like that. It's because you don't hear coaches talk about, a lot of coaches, like, they want 6 of themselves out there. That's what they want. They want, this kind of robotic, and it works. Sometimes it works for them, but not for Dave Aranda. He wants to be the chef of the stew there, so to speak.
I just like listening to talk. I do. There's two coaches that, to me, I like to listen to more than most anyone else. And Bill Parcells used to be one of them, even though Bill Parcells, of course, was arrogant, and he could be. Nick Saban and Gino Auriemma. There's just something, and that's just me. They may be 100th or not even on your list, but those two guys, when they talk, obviously they've also delivered lots of national championships and wins. But there's something about when they talk in Dave Aranda in a different way. It's not about him. He does have now he's comfortable enough to make fun of himself, and on occasions he dug at himself last year as well. But I love that comment. How boring and brutal would that be? But then again, I think maybe we'd have agreed 2020. I know what he's talking about was personality, but I think that'd be great. I think that.